Hello, everyone. Welcome to the opening conversation. We will get started momentarily. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat so that we know who all is here. And if you have any questions for our panelists, go ahead and use the questions tab next to the chat. If you like an existing question, to click the heart underneath and co-sign it, and we'll go ahead and get to that question later on in our conversation. And then if you want to connect directly with anyone here, go ahead to the People's tab so that you can go ahead and start that conversation. Panelists, let's give it maybe 1 minute for folks to join, and then we'll go ahead and kick off. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. I see folks chiming into the chat. Feel free to drop that name, organization you're connected to. Well, all right, let's get started. We have quite a conversation today. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's opening conversation, Charting New Territory. Today, we will hear from young entrepreneurs who are charting their own paths through business, many of whom are picking up the mantle and continuing as the next generation of family businesses in their own right and in their own way. Today, we will delve a little deeper into the legacies they hope to create, the family values that drive them forward, and how they've charted their own paths. My name is Naima McQueen. I am the Executive Director of Alliance for Community Development. We are a 501c3 nonprofit here in the Bay Area. I'm also a member of the Gellert Family Resource Center's Advisory Board, and so very humbled and excited to be moderating our conversation today. I'm joined by our panelists, Andrew Luong, CEO and co-founder of Doorvest, Matt Horn, executive chef and owner of Horn Barbecue, and Jasmine Kelleher, company partner with Jenny Rios Home. So to get us started, I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves with a pretty concise 1-minute elevator pitch about who they are, what they do, what they're passionate about. Let's go ahead and start with Andrew, pass it to Matt, and finish off with Jasmine.
Thank you, Naima. Excited to be here. I'm Andrew, co-founder and CEO of a company called Doorvest. We make it easy for anyone, anywhere to buy and own real estate, sort of entirely online. Our mission, and I think my personal mission, is the theme is around sort of financial security. So our mission as a company is to democratize access to financial security for all. Kind of what that means is we hope everyone kind of to bring everyone towards sort of sound financial standing.
Thanks. Let's go ahead and pass it to Matt.
Thanks, Naima. And Andrew, great to be here with you, man. I'm Matt Horn. I'm the owner, founder of Horn Barbecue. We are a Bay Area-based, family-owned, just a humble barbecue operation. Our goal is to impact barbecue, to impact culture, and to inspire the next generation through the craft and love of cooking and food.
Great. Well, I'll jump in now. So great to be here with you, Andrew and Matt. Thanks for moderating, Naima. So my name is Jasmine Kelleher, and I am a recent graduate of the University of San Francisco. I'm here representing Jenny Rios Home today, a construction management firm. We are based in San Francisco. I've been with the company for just about 3 years. We're just under 4 years old, and we work with homeowners with properties in the Bay Area. And we have a great mission of taking the mess and mystery out of this sometimes painful process of construction. And so I also grew up with a general contractor as a father, grew up in a family business, and I'm really kind of taking the lessons I learned growing up and I'm implementing them into the business that I'm in now and trying to make a real impact on the industry. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all. I'm just going to point out that for the most part, each of you said, like, I humbly do this, but here's this big old vision. So I just want to take a minute to just fangirl a little bit over the work that you all are doing and sort of these vibrant visions that you're bringing forward in today's conversations. So the first question I have, and perhaps Jasmine, maybe you can answer this first and we'll pass it to Matt, but what is the driving force behind founding / being involved with a family-owned business, right? So how do you see that forward growth being carried forward based on your experience growing up with the family business and pushing it forward, particularly in an industry, right, that is largely dominated by men as well. So I would love to hear your insights around that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a family business, and that was my dad is a general contractor. He has a construction company, and growing up, I just kind of saw the way things were done, the way projects were built, and I have always had a great love for construction and homes. And it wasn't until I met Jenny Rios in 2018 that I realized there is massive improvement for the industry. And we really kind of together collectively realized that we worked really well together. She had a mission of, she's really strategic and really believes in efficiency and effectiveness. And so I was coming from this really unique place of working with my dad, who was a general contractor, and my mom and dad kind of running this company together, who were doing things kind of like the old way, or the way that it kind of where the inefficiencies are in construction. And then I met Jenny, who was like this visionary in the field and this female. And it was like, yes, let's as women identify the gaps in the industry and figure out how to push it forward. And so I think, there's definitely a lot of growth, but of the lessons that I can take from my dad's business. And everything I do with work with Jenny, I like go right back to my dad. I'm like, Dad, let's make this better. Let's improve your company. So there's a lot of reciprocity between the two of them.
Thank you so much. And Matt, same question, really understanding this intentional choice of founding a family-owned barbecue. What's the vision for that, right? Like, what is the drive behind ensuring that this is a family-owned barbecue and that folks know that?
I just think that it's just really important to be able to pass down crafts, the food ways of which we've been brought up on, but then also creating family legacy. Similar to Jasmine, my father was in construction. I come from a construction family, so he was a contractor. So seeing my mother and father in the office working and building something collectively, it left a really big impact on both me and my siblings. So as I grow up, and I have 2 little kids, it's very important for me to pass that legacy on to them. So that's what we're doing with Horn Barbecue. But then also impacting our community, I feel like that's a really big part of it as well.
And what's it like to take back those lessons learned, both Matt and Jasmine, either can answer, but what's it like to take those lessons learned back to your parents? Like, I'm an adult now, I've got this business, I've got these lessons, let's talk about them. Do you find that they're receptive, or is it your own form of negotiation to bring new strategies to your family as you're building your own businesses or experiencing moving someone else's business forward? And maybe Matt, you can jump in first.
Okay, cool. No, I just, I don't know. I think it's really cool. It's like every time I have an opportunity to talk to my mom, I mean, she's always, she's telling me how proud she is and that sort of thing. But she's looking at me like through the lens of a mother, like I'm still a child. And I'm like, no, I'm an adult. I'm like, I'm doing really cool things. But, her accepting that and saying that a lot of the things that both her and my father did, I'm taking those same principles and implementing into our business. You know what I mean? So I think that that's extremely important generationally, where the things that we're passing down will influence the next generation.
Yeah, I think just to jump, having those conversations with my parents, they're entertaining, and they can also be really stressful and cause a lot of frustration, because I like to think of it as in, like, I'm trying to be the embodiment of the evolution of the construction industry. And I love my dad to pieces, but he's kind of the problem. And I am trying to see myself as the one bringing the solution. And so it's interesting. I actually had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and he was essentially kind of deterring me from continuing to build my career in construction. And he was pointing out all of these points why he thinks that it's difficult to be in the construction industry. And I started laughing. And I said, Dad, every point that you pointed out is exactly my purpose for being in this industry. And so it's given me a lot of space for reflection that he's the person who I want to help evolve and realize where there is space for growth, where there are gaps in the industry, but he doesn't have that vision. And it doesn't matter how many conversations I have with him. He just kind of looks at me. He's like, okay, you're doing your thing. But I can't push him too hard, because if you just can't see it, you can't see it.
That's very real. There's just like this timeline of evolution and moving folks forward, particularly when we love them, right? And so that conversation looks a little different with our family members. Thank you both so much for sharing your experiences. And the next question I have is really about the inevitability of what all businesses go through, which is funding, right? And financing our businesses. And so I'm curious how you align your family and business values with investment and raising capital. And I would love for Andrew to take this question first.
Yeah. Where did I start here? I guess a little bit of the backstory to, I guess, Doorvest. Doorvest kind of was brought about because I used to do sort of real estate investing, sort of nights and weekends kind of thing, while by day was a busy working person. Part of that journey to real estate initially was partnering with my mom to do projects and do some renovations and flips and things of that nature with her. Also, part of that was raising capital through family and friends, but family and friends. So I guess the evolution of how capital is transferred and lent and or invested is something that's deeply personal to me. I think that I think that capital is kind of the sensitive topic in the sense that, especially when it's coming from like a loved one, it feels like it's either a favor or an investment or something in between. And sometimes these things are conflicting. I think for us as a company at Doorvest, we've raised some money from family and friends and sort of in prior lives and whatnot. It's always been important for me to kind of try to decipher that, and maybe it's an element of setting the expectations. It's like, hey, this is an investment because of X, Y, and Z. The icing on the cake is that we love each other, so maybe I lose your money, and I'm sorry in advance. But again, this is still an investment. I think that's always been kind of how we've approached it. Right or wrong, I'm not sure, but certainly that's how we've approached it today.
Thank you. And I want to come back to this like working with parents thing and really what are the intersections of interpersonal relationship building within family-owned businesses. But before we get there, I wanted to hear from Matt just how you've been able to align what are very clear, strong family values about moving legacy forward and impacting community. How have you been able to align that with the ways in which you've raised capital for Horn Barbecue?
I think as we move culture and we create a legacy and implement family values, I think it's very important to be one strategic, but then also very careful with the funds that are raised for building the company. I've been very protective of that because this is a family-owned business, but we are moving it forward. The business is growing, and then while being approached with capital and potential investment opportunities, I have to always make sure that I'm maintaining the core values of what I was taught with my family. But then also I'm looking at it through a lens of, okay, how do we take the business to the next level? But without those values, there's no clear direction as to, from where we're going. So I think about it every day. I think it's something that's extremely important to consider that we never deter away from the values that make Horn Barbecue what it is, because the soul of it is family and legacy, and I think that's the biggest part of legacy. At the core of it is family.
Thank you. And Jasmine, have you found that just applying those values from.
I think we lost her, but I will, I mean, just to kind of answer based off of, so I think Matt, what you said was
Yeah.
really on point with kind of where we're at with funding. We're all self-funded, and the same thing. We have a mission, and our mission and our values as a company have really evolved a lot in the last 6 months and will continue by the end of the year. And we've been approached for investment opportunities, but we don't want to dilute the value or the development of the vision that we're trying to create. So bringing any potential investment in it would have to be a really important fit. And we're also not interested in scaling really rapidly. We want to scale in a sustainable fashion that we can bring good people into the company, and we are a service-based business, so that is a consideration as well. So we don't have any other investment besides our self-funded investment, but we're not closed down to it. If the right investor presented themselves, we would be open to having that conversation.
No, that's awesome. That's completely awesome, and I respect that a lot. I mean, you guys are doing it right. You have to protect that. I mean, because you take on the wrong investment, you bring in the wrong individuals who say their vision isn't aligned with what your core values are as a company. Then it's so delicate to even build a brand. So you have to protect that at all costs.
Right.
Yeah.
I did get kicked out for a sec, but I'm back. So thank y'all for carrying on. But I did come back in just in time for my heart to flutter, because this is really my jam, this conversation around how we align our values with investment and with capital. So to understand that you're all being really thoughtful about that is deeply powerful. I mean, Jasmine, this idea of scaling in a sustainable way, I think oftentimes we are sort of inundated with messaging around like scale quick, scale now, do it as fast as you can. And so it's really refreshing to take the reins and say, you know what, we're going to slow this down based on what is aligned with the values for our organization and with us as leaders. So thank you all so much. And that sort of brings me back to this idea of interacting with family. Andrew talked a lot about raising money through like friends and family and those kind of interactions, but also mentioned working with his mom. And Jasmine, I know you talked about working with your dad. So what's that like, working directly with family, right? There's some of us that are thinking about launching family-owned businesses, but need to keep in mind what are some of the things that come up, some of the things that we can plan for. So maybe, Andrew, do you want to jump a little bit more into those experiences, some of the things that you've learned about yourself in working with family? And we'll pass it to Jasmine and then Matt.
Yeah.
Hey, Naima, sorry to interrupt. The stream isn't working on the viewer end. Can you hit stop and start and see if that makes it come back?
Okay. All right. Can folks see the stream now? Okay, the stream is going. Awesome. Great. For folks, I rejoined, folks are rejoining. Welcome back. Thank you so much for all of your patience with technical difficulties in the age of digital conferences. We do have a question coming up about the role of technology and family business. So this is pretty right on time. For those rejoining us, we're jumping into a question about what it's like to work with family and starting to keep in mind some of those key interpersonal things that inevitably come up, right? How do you navigate those things? How do you plan for it? I don't know that I can argue with my mom, who's a co-founder of my consulting firm, the same way I might argue with a peer, right? So how are we navigating some of these relationships? And so we're gonna start off with Andrew, go to Jasmine, wrap up with Matt, and then move on to our next question. Please keep dropping your questions in the question chat box. I do see them. We will get to them in the last 10 minutes of our conversation.
Yeah, so I guess I mean maybe starting with sort of the downside, and then we'll quickly move to sort of the upside, which I'm usually more interested about. But like I'd say the downside is maybe similar to sort of the situation that maybe Jasmine shared earlier about kind of like the blocking off and sort of the inability or maybe unwillingness or lack of interest in sort of listening to sort of feedback from a family member for whatever reason, and maybe it has something to do with sort of like I don't know, like a parent dynamic. I think that's certainly the downside, but I think sort of the upside is pretty high, assuming you can keep things in rein. So I don't know, so something that with a family that you have that you don't have in a traditional a standard working relationship is sort of the many years of trust that I mean essentially cannot be rebuilt just through a pure working relationship, let alone an early working relationship. So the ability. So actually, an example between my mom and I is like we argue all day. Like we literally argue about everything. And I talk about this to our team at Doorvest now all the time because this is effectively the type of relationship I would love to have with everyone that I work with. Like I hope that we could debate and argue and I mean effectively yeah just be like arguing all day and then that kind of helps us refine the thought and then at the end we as sort of two individuals kind of find the refined thought that's effectively the truth. So I think what I'm trying to get at is the trust is really important because my mom and I could argue about anything and we'll still know at the end of the day like she's not gonna not be my mom anymore or what have you. I hope. So I think the level of trust, and I think that's something that we could all kind of strive for in our other working relationships too. Is kind of how do we build lots of trust so that we could have the tough conversations. These tough conversations tend to drive things forward, but knowing that there's sort of the trust behind the scenes as a backstop. I think is really important and certainly something that you could leverage with family members.
Thank you. And then before we pass off to Jasmine, just quick, there was a question in the chat box that I think aligns really well. And this is from Dr. Monica Hudson, who asked how those family values that you talked about, trust being one of them, impact Doorvest.
Yeah. And actually, I was kind of chuckling to myself earlier hearing Matt and Jasmine talking about sort of ensuring that sort of the core values and whatnot are kept as you build a business, as you potentially take on outside capital, etc. I think the path that we've chosen for Doorvest is certain very much the scale quickly approach and like let's swing for the fences. Of course, it comes with its own trade-offs and whatnot, but something that I think is really important that I have to remind myself too is kind of our mission as a company, my personal mission and sort of my personal values, and how do we build sort of this vehicle that aligns with it. So back to your question, trust is actually in one of our core values too, is the ability to pay it forward, sort of expect the best in others, as I think in a family you would, and really just build from sort of the foundation of trust.
Thanks. Jasmine, what is your experience? What are some of the things that we need to keep in mind when it comes to working with family, some of those interpersonal hacks that we should be thinking about? What's come up for you?
Yeah, so I think I'm in a really complicated situation where my 3 closest relationships in my life also have business involved. And so I have my parents, I have my fiance, and I have Jenny, who is business partner and friend. And so the biggest, I think Andrew hit it right on the head about just trust. That's what you know when you work with family members is that you're fine. You're going to have trust, and you're probably going to know them at a much deeper level. You're going to be able to have those really open, really honest conversations that you can't always have with a new employee or someone else. And so I think one of the biggest things though that I've found is just really setting intentional time where we're not talking about business. And so, Jenny and I will go for a walk and we're like, okay, this is a business walk. We're going to talk about the business. And other times it's just like, hey, we're going to go for a walk and we're going to talk about life. And it's the same thing with my fiance. It's like, we're going to go on a walk and we're going to talk about your business plan. And we're also going to go out to the beach and we're not going to talk about any of that. And I think that's how I've found it to be sustainable for me. And that's one of the biggest things I would urge someone to consider if they were looking at working with a family member. And I think the other thing is just, I had a venture capitalist tell me a couple years ago that the best advice he could give to any entrepreneur is to find good people and then stay out of their way. And I think if you have family members that are good, would be great with your company, they would work well with you, then retain them the way you would go looking for an employee, and then onboard them and bring them into the company, and then kind of stay out of their way professionally and really try and not let that. And I mean, there's so much nuance when you work with family involved, but I think those are the two, is like, look at your family. Sometimes if you can look at it between, is this a good employee because I know them as a family member? And then if you are working with them, make sure that you have really intentional time where you're separating your two worlds.
Thank you. Matt, what about you? Any thoughts that you'd like to weigh in?
You know what? I mean, both Jasmine and Andrew both said, I mean, my mother handles our online store, fulfillment orders, you know what I mean? So working with her, I'm asking if things are done or whatnot. But then it's this boundary that you have. You have to set these boundaries, and yeah, that's my mother, but still respecting her as a business professional and whatnot. But to kind of echo what Jasmine was saying, having an understanding of you have to be patient as well. I think that's something that's really important working with family, being patient with them, because I find it very hard at night to just relax, spend time with my wife and children and whatnot. I just can never turn it off. And I just think that that's really important, because all of my relationships are all centered around business. So it's kind of hard for me to discuss anything outside of, my business dealings. But I feel like that's something that's extremely important, is having that balance or whatnot. But I agree completely. I mean, it's important to turn off and then, find time to just enjoy life, talk about life, and have that balance.
I appreciate all of your contributions to that question. I think as someone who is in the same space where most of my closest folks are connected either to my business or to the work that I'm doing, that intentionality around time and trust and conversation is really important. And I just want to make sure that folks heard some of the gems that came out of that question. One being that trust has to be a core value, right? And when we're working with family members, we also have to have that open and honest conversation that sometimes you can really only have because it's a family member. And also this idea of intentional time, right? So that we can accurately separate business and personal and maybe have a little life development of our own. My last question before I jump to some of the audience questions, which are stellar, and I'm super excited to ask on behalf of folks. The last question I have for you all is what is the legacy that you hope to leave behind through your work and through your business? And how are you charting a path for the next generation to come after you? And let's go ahead and start with Matt.
I think in terms of leaving a legacy, me personally, I hope that the legacy that I leave is one of resilience, perseverance, very intentional with the impact in our community. We have really great neighbors where we are. We're in West Oakland, and there's a recycling plant to the left of us, and then right across is a candy operation. And we're in a very special place, especially being in West Oakland or whatnot. But I just think that it's not only important to have a successful restaurant if we can get there, but to be a great neighbor and then be a great member of the community. So I think that that's like the legacy that we would like to leave, is just being innovative with our craft. innovation, commitment to excellence, and community service. Those are the big things. Those are the big things for us.
Thank you. Jasmine, what about you?
Yeah, I think there are three big pieces that I personally and with the company and through my relationship with my dad, I identify as an impact that I want to leave on the construction industry. I think the first one is just homeowner education. Homeowners don't know what they don't know. And typically, when you're putting money into your home, you're putting a lot of money into your home. And so, really, that education piece for homeowners. The other big part is just the relationship between bridging design and construction, and the industry relationships there is a really big part of what we're trying to tend to and improve. But I think the biggest thing is really the sustainability aspect, that in the construction industry there is a lot of waste. If you go in and you're building a home and you demo a home, there's so much waste that can be involved in really diverting materials from a landfill, looking at different toxicity levels of materials, but then just implementing construction practices that are using renewable techniques, that are using materials that are friendly for the environment, but also are going to be cost effective for the owner, more cost effective than you'd think. Like California, if anyone isn't familiar with California's relationship with natural gas, I highly recommend you look into it. And so I think that overall, like, yes, we want to improve homeowner education. Yes, we want to improve this bridge between design and construction, but we want to create a path in which the construction industry can be more sustainable and really pursue that climate justice piece of it.
Thank you. And Andrea?
Yeah, it's so exciting to hear sort of everyone's sort of dreams and what they hope to leave behind. Yeah, I think for us, I guess for me and by extension for us, really around the concept of economic empowerment and financial security and whatnot. Like, I grew up well, like squarely middle class in nature. Kind of saw firsthand sort of the downside impact of sort of lack of financial security, both financially, obviously, but also psychologically. So the hope is to sort of use Doorvest as this vehicle to hopefully bring financial security to more and more people. And I think we have a long way to go. I think we're making some good progress. But hopefully, if we succeed as a company, that would mean that we would have been able to leave that behind. But we'll see. Maybe we could follow up on this in a couple of years.
I so deeply appreciate that the underlying theme, or at least one of the underlying themes that I heard from each of you, is this momentum forward to support folks in generational wealth, and really what it takes to build that for families and generations moving forward. So I really appreciate all of you, all three of you, and really your ability to share your thoughts and experiences with us today, as well as your patience with tech and some of my questions that I was excited to ask you all. We have a couple questions from our audience members. And so this first one is for Andrew. The question is, what challenges did you have bridging the gap between the physical world of real estate and the digital world of internet fundraising?
Yeah, many challenges, and we're still trying to figure that out. I'd say, I mean, number one, like, we got a bit fortunate. So we've always had this belief that real estate, similar to everything else kind of in life now, such as buying a pair of shoes, such as buying stuff on Amazon, etc. We believe that real estate can be transacted digitally. I think some of which was accelerated due to COVID. So we kind of more or less were started about a year and a half ago, right before COVID. When COVID hit, like, everyone was forced. Like, no one wanted to go see or touch physical real estate. So I think that kind of played in our favor. But it's certainly still a challenge. Like, education around the fact that most of the data that you could get around real estate is available online, and you could do things like tour a house with a Matterport report and things of that nature. So I'd say we're still making progress, but it seems like there is appetite for transacting real estate digitally, which I think is exciting, and it'll be positive for the industry.
I see we have a question in the chat for Jasmine. The question is really about how you would go about educating homeowners.
That's a big one. I mean, there's a couple tools we have currently. We created something called the Owner's Guide, which I kind of say is like the Khan Academy for homeowners. But a lot of it, and then we have some resources, and we really do a lot of like industry interviews, but the biggest piece comes with when we work with our clients one-on-one, and really the portion of the conversation that is first wrapped around helping them contextualize what it is they're doing and not going into a construction process blindly. And so most of it is one-on-one with our clients, but we're trying to expand our platform to be able to have it be more attainable for people to just like enroll in an online program or to just be able to read our resources. But so there's a couple different ways, and it depends on how in depth you go and what the level of a project is that needs to be shared. But a lot of it's just about creating awareness between expectations versus reality.
Thank you. And then this question is for anyone. How do you navigate conflicts between family owners and non-family employees, if that comes up? How do you navigate that?
Maybe I could kick it off unless someone else has wants to go. But yeah, I mean, I think for us, just to be clear, within the company as sort of a full-time team member, there are no family members. However, on sort of the cap table and on like the investor side, we do have many family members as investors in the company. What we do have is circles of friends, which yes, circles of deeply connected friends and whatnot. I think number one for us, just trust all around, and the concept of fair, I think is really important. So being fair and being obvious about being fair, whether it be a relationship with a team member that I've known for years or a relationship with a team member that I've known for a few months. It's hard, but really being mindful of being fair, I think is really important. I think number two is effectively we're all shareholders in the company. We're diligent and we're very aggressive about giving out equity to team members, giving equity to team members within the company. And I think where that's valuable from an interpersonal relationship standpoint is we're all aligned. Like if Doorvest succeeds in our mission, like hopefully we all kind of participate in the upside together. And I think that kind of helps mitigate. Certainly believe that maybe this is not possible or advised in all situations, but that's how we approach it.
Thank you. And I think I saw Matt jump to respond too. So Matt, did you want to weigh in some thoughts as well?
Andrew pretty much nailed that. You pretty knocked it out the park. But what I was going to say was a part of those boundaries with family, dealing with conflict is, respecting both individuals, whether it's the family member or one of the employees of the company. That's a part of it, being able to, solve those problems and whatnot. But I haven't really ran into that with, family members and staff that way. But, hopefully when it comes, I'll be able to address it, in a respectful way.
Thank you. And I know we're running up at time. I got 1 minute left, but I'm known to stretch that minute. So this last question is a yes or no from each of you. As you expand, do you have plans to pass your business down to other family members or to your employees? Let's start with Andrew.
Yes, there's caveats, but I only got to say yes. So yes.
Well, the benefit is our fabulous audience members can go ahead and navigate to the People tab and ask these questions to you directly and have you expand on it. So this is not the end of the conversation. Thank you so much. Matt, what about you?
Absolutely. I feel like the importance of building generational wealth is something that is extremely important to us. And I feel like in order to do that and build generationally, there needs to be a grooming and a proper preparation for that. So I do plan to pass it on.
Awesome. And Jasmine?
I'll keep it short, but absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Like I said, if you want to continue the conversation with any of our speakers, feel free to navigate to the People tab. Thank you all so much for listening to today's conversation. To continue this conversation or to gain practical transition skills, consider joining the center and participating in our upcoming Next Generation Institute. More information about the Next Generation Institute is on the center's website. Coming up is a 10-minute break to stretch and enjoy some music. Click on the break session when you get back to the lobby. We will all return at 1:50. You can choose from a few different sessions. There are 6 different Meet the Funder virtual booths featuring micro-lending organizations where you can ask questions to learn more about accessing funding, or you can tune into a discussion around employee ownership with Kirk Martin, General Manager / founder of A Slice of New York. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all for the questions, and I hope to chat with you all soon. Thank you again to our speakers. It's been such a pleasure, and I look forward to catching up after this.
Thank you, guys.
This is great. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.